Hello, hello, hello there, everyone. How are you doing today? So glad to have you joining me for coffee time. Yes, I know. Mondays are a little rough. How about you? I don't know. They're not my best day. Let's just say that. I tried to make them my best day. All right, we're going to jump right in there for those of you who are joining us for the very first time. My name is Patricia Hayes. I'm an executive advisor, empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And what that means is I love working with people to help up level their executive presence so that their teams, if they're entrepreneurs, that they can move forward with their professional goals and dreams in a way where they're fully empowered and able to leverage their professional relationships in a way that's sustainable over time. So, glad to be here. We are finishing out a series. So if you follow or if you go check it out on previous days or absolutely on the YouTube channel, they're all there. If you will go and check out, we are finishing up a series where we are talking about leveraging our networking, our networks for as a professional tool. Got to get all the words out. So, this is the last in that series where we are talking about creating your personalized networking mastermind. Now, let me just start off by saying that this could be a series all by itself, right? And it may become one eventually. I have so much to say about this whole mastermind piece, but right now we're going to limit it to the conversation of when you are building out your professional relationships and you're trying to get to the next level of what it is you're trying to do, right? And how do you know who to reach out to, and how do you know how to, to keep that quote inner circle intact over time? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, not all of it, because like I said, it is absolutely a topic all on its own for its own series. But here's what I want you to know, that it is absolutely important to keep track of your own personalized mastermind. Okay. Now, there are all kinds of topics for it, right? I mean, all kinds of names for it, whether it's your inner circle, whether it's your, what have I heard other people call it? Um, it'll come to me later, but there's lots of names for it. But it's basically when you're talking about a group of folks that you go to on a regular basis when you are making important professional decisions, business decisions, those types of things, and how and knowing that they will weigh in a way that'll be helpful to you. Now, we'll talk about this in a second, but that group of people doesn't have to remain static, right? It can be very fluid. I actually recommend that you build out a group of folks that is fluid, and we'll talk about why in just a second. But here's the thing: the role and importance of a networking mastermind is exactly this, that you have an objective group of folks to tap into when you are making key or very important or strategic decisions about your career, about your business. Okay. Sometimes we want to go talk to our family. It is not always the most appropriate, right? Because they are not going to be objective. They are invested in whatever action you're about to take. Sometimes you may have people at work that you can talk to, but not always. They too may be vested in some way, all right? Including not wanting you to move because maybe they're trying to move on somewhere. Who knows? But the role of this group of folks, again, is to provide you some sound judgment that you can trust as you as you move forward in making your decisions. So here's my first point on when you're creating this personalized networking mastermind. First of all, you have to be open, be very open-minded about who to include. Now, what does this mean? This means that it may not be the most obvious people, right? Quite frankly, a lot of times it may not be at all. the most obvious person, like a boss or a mentor or whatever. It could be, but not always. I will give you an example that colors all of this. Is some years ago when I was in a position and looking to make a move out, right? It was time to move on, clearly. And there was a lot of office politics and nastiness going on. So it was very important for me to maintain some confidentiality when moving on. And because, hello, remember, my business for decades was governmental relations and being a lobbyist, which basically means professional information gatherer and sharer. I think that's the first time I've described myself as such, but it's absolutely true. So that said, guess who I hung out with? Other professional information gatherers and information sharers. And so I knew that I could not include anyone in my immediate circle of colleagues because I truly did not want this potential move or the things that I was thinking about doing to get out, right? Just as a accidental leak. Not there for that. I was not there for that at the time. And so if you were to draw circles on a page, there were multiple concentric circles. I think I went out like 3 to 5 circles out, right? Because I was being a little paranoid, but I had reason. I had reason, trust me. But I went out that far to make sure that the people that I was going to consult were not in any way immediately impacted by my decision. There was no motivation for them to share this information deliberately or accidentally, but that they could truly be advisors to me for this point, for this matter. Okay. So that was me, because if you know me, if you follow me, I'm very strategic. My brain is always going. And so that was the way in which I knew that I needed to deal with it for my sake at that time. Okay. So that said, that meant that I wasn't calling some of the people I might have normally consulted, right? Or I wasn't including them because this was very deliberate, very specific, and I needed a specific set of some input. The main point being objectivity and lack of investment in the decision. Okay. So I didn't include people that people might have thought I should have or would have had, if they knew what I knew at the time. Okay. Make sure it's diverse. So when you're doing that, here's the thing. They don't even have to be in your same industry. These people do not even have to be in your same industry. If it's relevant, of course, then find someone who's in your industry. But what you really care about are some of these other things that we're going to talk about, which is their ability to provide wise counsel and sound judgment. They have the ability to be objective about your situation. They can still care about you, right? There's not saying that they don't care about you and the decision that you make, but it is saying that they are able to also probably give you some, a little chewing out. I remember when I chose my group, I had a couple of them that were like, I cannot believe you did not come to me sooner. And I was like, I'm sorry. But right? So the ability to provide wise judgment, to provide, wise counsel and sound judgment, and a level of objectivity that will be helpful to you today and for the long term in the decision that you're making. Okay. Or for whatever purpose you're pulling this group together. Now, that said, when I say diverse sets of thinking. I will just tell you, like, my group was very diverse. It had women, it had men, there were Black people, there were white people, there were people in my industry. There were people I worked with. There were people that I had worked with in the past. There were people I had never worked with directly. Okay. But here's what they had in common. They knew who I was professionally. They knew of me. They had sound contacts to someone that I knew or that I knew directly. And they were what I would have called, a part of my fan club. They were people that quietly or more outwardly had always been very encouraging to me down through the years. And so they were able to, weigh in a way that I hadn't thought. So there I was taking a risk, and that's another point here is you have to get outside your comfort zone when looking at and considering who you might involve in your networking mastermind. Okay. Again, this is not about your comfort. This is about you putting together strategically a sound group of people who will help you in your decision making along the way. Okay. So it's not always the most obvious person. You definitely want to diversify. You do not want to hear the same things from the same groups of people. Okay. And you want to make sure that they've had provided consistent support over the years. It doesn't have to be direct, but even those folks who have been like, hey, how are you doing? Let me know if I ever can help you. You're doing great. I had several of those. And I knew that I could get an objective viewpoint from that person because they were not personally vested in the decision that I was about to make. Okay. But they'd always been very encouraging. All right. So that's the first point. Always remember to be open-minded about who to include. All right. The experiences and perspectives, the diversity and experience, diversities of people, the diversity of perspectives is very important. Okay. The second point that I would like to offer to you on this is that vulnerability is required. And we're going to take a sip of coffee on that one and let that one rest for you. And here's what I mean. When we are in the midst of challenging decisions, difficult decisions, even if it's for good, right? It means there's a significant shift you're about to make. So that can put you in a space of being very uncomfortable. It can put you in a space of being a little afraid and a little fearful. All perfectly normal, all perfectly okay. Here's the thing. This is not the time to clam up. And this why that first step that you take is so important when you're being open-minded about who you pull in and who you're going to be a consider as a part of this little mastermind for this particular purpose, is because you need to be able to open up to these folks and let them know the real deal. Okay. When I reached out this particular time that I'm thinking about, this person, one of them was a former boss who, we'd see each other, we still knew, similar people and all of that, but we weren't chatting on a regular basis at that point in time. But I reached out to this person because I respected them. They have been very influential in my professional career as I started out. And so I thought, you know what, this is someone who can provide me some objective advice, but who still knows me. And when I reached out to this person, first thing was they fussed at me for not reaching out sooner. Lesson learned about some of these things. And secondly, is knowing that this person had been involved, they had been an employer and all that. I had to be able to share what was going on. And for me, in this particular situation, it was not pretty. Like there were some things going on that I had to say, hey, this has happened and this was happening. And they were like, oh my gosh. Right? You've been carrying this around too much. So that's why I say you have to be able to open up and truthfully share what your greatest concerns are, what your greatest goals are. Vulnerability is crucial. It is required. If you want to leverage your networking mastermind to the best of its capacity and its ability, you have to be able to open up to the people that you're sharing with. Otherwise, they're working with they're working in a what's the word I want to use? They're working at a disadvantage. They don't have all the information. Right? So if you're only giving them part of the story, then they're only going to be able to advise you based on what you're telling them. But if there's more to the story and you're not being open, then you're not leveraging the opportunity to the best of its ability. And dare I say, you are putting that relationship in jeopardy Because if something comes out later and they realize you had not been completely open with them, they're not going to be as trustworthy. You are putting that racial relationship in jeopardy because you made it appear as if you trusted them, but because you didn't share, you didn't really trust them. And they will pick up on that later. I'm telling you what I know. Okay. So it is very important that you are able to be open and honest about those goals, about those needs, about the situations or challenges you may have had going forward. Now, here's the thing. It is okay. This is another reason why it is super okay to limit the number. We didn't get into this because, like I said, we're not getting into all the details, the nitty gritty of it. However, this is not where you may expect to have 10 people. This is not a 10 people conversation. You're not shopping for support. Okay, that is not what a networking mastermind is. You are not shopping for support. You are looking for strategic advice, consideration, as you are making whatever important decision you need to make. Right? This is not just like overall, oh, you're going to hang around and we're going to chit chat and whatever. No, we're being very targeted. So at most, it probably is like 5 people. 3 is a little tiny, depending on what the level of the decision is, but 3 to 5, 6 people tops is probably what you're looking at. And again, if you've done your homework and not just jumped into it, you have made sure that you have diversified what that group of people, who that group of people is, so that you can get a full picture and some good advice as you move forward. Okay. The last thing that I want to say about this is that it involves forward thinking and expanding relationships. What do I mean by that? Because here's the thing. A lot of times you're like, oh, this is who I used to work with, so they'll be able to tell me about X, Y, and Z. Again, may be relevant, may not be. But it's also about who are you willing to facilitate and to continue that relationship with moving forward. Because once you start that and you share that, you have now made that person in some ways a part of an inner circle for you. It doesn't mean that you're always going to go to that person or that thing, right? It doesn't mean that. But it does mean that you are now on their radar because you have come to them to share, to seek their advice. And people remember that. People remember who comes to them for help, who comes to them to get advice specifically. So even if you don't go back and talk to that person for 5 years, don't think that they have forgotten about you or that they have forgotten that. They never forget. Okay. This person now is definitely a strong foundation and part of your professional network. And that means that even without you trying, this person, these people will be looking out for your best interest moving forward. Think about that. Think about how powerful that is. That just because you reached out to them to help you make a decision about this thing, this situation, this next move, that you are now including them potentially in things as you move forward, because they'll be keeping an eye on you. You may not have to chat with them again for a while. I know that several of those people that I reached out to before, I don't have regular conversations with. I do not. However, they are very much a part of my current network, and I know that they keep up. How? I see the little checks on the social media. I get the, messages through mutual relationships, mutual friends, mutual colleagues. Hey, yeah, I saw so and so. They said to say hi, right? All of those things happen. And so you want to make sure you're engaging with someone who has a growth mindset, because as long as they are looking forward, you know that they potentially are looking forward on your behalf as well. Think about that. Think about how powerful that is. I know that I have been that to other people. Didn't realize it at the time, right? But I have folks who come to me after the fact. They're like, yeah, I knew that I needed to make this decision. And I was like, I have to talk to Patricia. And I was like, really? They're like, oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I needed you to be a part of this so that I could think about it because you always give it advice or, whatever it may be. Okay. So think about that as you being that person. Think about what it means for the other person that you're asking as well. Okay. So think about that in a forward moving way as well, and how you're potentially expanding your relationships and your networks just because you invite someone to be a part of that inner circle mastermind that you are creating for this particular purpose. Okay. Now, here's the thing. The context in which I've been presenting this has been you have a specific decision, you have a goal you're trying to achieve, there's a move you're wanting to make, whether it's immediate or a little bit longer term, whatever. And that's the context in which I've described this networking mastermind when you pull people together. And again, you're going, and what does that look like, right? This is not physically pulling everyone together, right? You don't have to physically do that. That's not even what I recommend, because your relationship with those people does not mean that each of those people have relationships, okay, with each other. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it's your relationship with them. So whether you're reaching out to them via phone, via video chat these days, or if you're still can swing it, a socially distance coffee or lunch, whatever those things, but letting them know when you reach out to them that, hey, I'm in the process of working through some things and I would like to discuss and get your input on it. So give them the heads up of what it is, right? You don't have to go into details, but you do need to share and let them know that, hey, I'm coming to you off script because I really want to make sure to talk to you about about some decisions I'm looking to make, about some changes I'm looking to make, right? And that's when you can say, and I'm only reaching out to a handful of people because I really want to be able to get some sound advice that I can then move forward and utilize to make my my next decision, take my next step. All right. Those are a couple of things you want to make sure that you do. If you are looking for what I call kind of deliberately looking for folks that you can go to on a more regular basis over time, that's a little bit different, right? Because now you're talking about, maybe it's in a circle, some folks that you can, lean on a regular basis. Okay. And that group of people may be different. These are people you're probably talking to more often. I love the fact that some other female consultants in the area, we pulled together and started a meeting last week after one of the women saying, you know what, we need to get some support together. And that's going to be something that is done on a more regular basis, right? Once a month or something like that, where we can come together, share ideas, share stories, share challenges, and then work to support each other in that. Okay. So that's a different type of, networking, mastermindy type of thing, right? As opposed to what I was describing, which was very focused, very deliberate, very strategic, because it's focused on a particular goal, a particular decision, a particular move that you're trying to make. Can some of these people in a broader one be included in that? Absolutely. All right. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the same. So that's why I highly encourage you, as I started off by saying, to be very open-minded and to be very deliberate. So before you start jumping out there, you really will, y'all know I'm a fan of the handy dandy journals, and that you like kind of write that down and kind of think about it and why you think that person might be able to provide you some good insight. Not because they're going to give you an answer that you want, but they will be able to give you an answer you can respect. Whoa, how about that? Seek out people whose answers you can respect. Okay. I think that's good enough right there to end on. I love that. Love that. So there we are. Let me see. We've got a comment or two. Hello there, April. Love this conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you. So here's the thing. We are going to, if there's any other questions or comments, let me know before I get ready to sign off here. But what I encourage you to do is just give some thought. You never know when you're going to need a group like this to weigh in. So it's not just a matter, it's that whole thing of not waiting until you need something to think about it, right? It's always a great idea to have some thought about, hey, if I needed to reach out to someone to have a discussion about X, I wonder who that, could that be? And jotting some notes down and remembering that. And then you can have it someplace to go. So whether you keep that in your calendar electronically or your planner like I do, these are great things to kind of keep so that when the time comes, you have something to reflect on and you are able to jumpstart that and know at least one or two people that you would reach out to immediately. And here's where the gold is. I always talk about gold is in the follow-up. Here's where the gold is. When you start down that road and you have a conversation, it always happens, it does not fail, that person that you reach out to will probably give you direction for someone else or something else to reach out to consider. Okay, that is why this process, why this practice is so invaluable. It is invaluable. Okay. So I highly encourage you to think about creating your own personalized networking mastermind. This is not something you go chat up with a bunch of people. If you have an accountability partner or someone that you weigh in and think with, or a coach or mentor, it's a good person to have that kind of conversation with. But quite frankly, it's something you want to keep a little close to the vest because you never know when you're going to need to reach out to someone. And the last thing you want is the drama of someone saying, oh, well, you didn't call me and ask me about that. We do not have time for that. We are grown people trying to live grown lives, work professional, achieve professional goals, and run businesses. We do not have time for that. So this is one of those things where it is something that, again, that it's for you. You share with a trusted few, and then you look back and you can say, okay, here's somebody I want to be able to, that you want to be able to reach out to. Okay. All right. So let's see. If you are on Facebook, looks like we had a little bit of a streaming issue. I have no idea. So we'll come back and check, and I'll make sure that you get it, the full thing on the YouTube or the LinkedIn page, as well as we will continue, and we'll have a fresh new topic coming next week. This is a new month, you guys, so do not hesitate to reach out if you are interested in starting a networking challenge this month, okay? The 30-day consistency networking challenge is open for you to start. So if you are interested, hit me up in the DMs and I'll be happy to share that information with you so that you can go check it out and decide if that's something that you want to do, okay? So many other things. If you have any questions or if you want to set up a time to have a chat, let me know. I'll drop the link, to Calendly link in the comments, and we can schedule a follow-up. All right. Take care, everyone, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye-bye.